for the first time in hundreds of years. A long dormant volcano in Russia's far east erupted on the 3rd of August. It spewed an ash cloud several miles high. The overnight eruption on the Krasheninnikov Volcano in Kamchatka, its first in 500 years, may reportedly be connected to the earthquake that rocked Russia's far east a week ago. The erupting volcano was filmed on camera by a tourist guide group. Take a look.
We've seen a unique event. While returning from Tumroki, we've seen Krasheninnikov Volcano eruption.
The Kamchatka branch of Russia's Ministry for Emergency Services said that an ash plume rising up to 6,000 meters has been recorded following the volcano's eruption. Just a week ago, a massive earthquake shook Russia's far east. An 8.8 magnitude earthquake shook the Kamchatka Peninsula, unleashing huge waves in the Pacific Ocean and setting off tsunami warnings across the world. No serious injuries or damage were reported. A few hours after the quake, an active volcano in the region called Kilimanjaro erupted. Some of the tsunami waves that the earthquake generated were as high as 19 feet. A local port was flooded and ceiling panels fell at a terminal building of a regional airport, injuring one woman. Aftershocks have rocked the region in recent days. What are dormant volcanoes? What is triggering these dormant volcanoes? And is there a way to stop a volcano from erupting? We explain all these and more on WION Wideangle this week. In far eastern Russia, a volcano erupted for the first time in more than 600 years. The Krasheninnikov Volcano in Kamchatka threw up an ash plume up to 6 kilometers. Hours later, another large earthquake in Russia led to tsunami warnings in 3 areas of the peninsula. Experts say that both these events may be connected to a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake which hit a similar area a week ago on the 30th of July and caused tsunami warnings as far away as French Polynesia and Chile. It was one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded. The videos show buildings and other debris in the town of Severokurilsk being washed away by the strong waves. The large quake prompted warnings and evacuations stretching across the Pacific Ocean. Much of Japan's eastern seaboard, which was devastated by a powerful earthquake and tsunami in 2011, was also ordered to evacuate. Guests at a beachfront hotel in Honolulu in Hawaii also remained on alert after tsunami warnings across the Pacific. Videos from the Alohilani resort in Waikiki showed hotel guests gathered on their room balconies, scanning the horizon as the sun set over the ocean. Despite the tsunami warnings triggered by the powerful earthquake, doctors in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky in Russia continued to operate on a patient. So what caused the earthquake and the tsunami in the region? Let's understand. The Pacific Ring of Fire is a belt of intense seismic activity encircling the Pacific Ocean. The area is characterized by active volcanoes and frequent earthquakes. Roughly 90% of all earthquakes occur along the Ring of Fire, and the ring is dotted with 75% of all active volcanoes on Earth. The upper layers of the Earth are split into sections, tectonic plates, which are all moving relative to one another. The ring of fire that surrounds several tectonic plates is an arc of these plates that extends around the Pacific. Tectonic plates move towards each other, creating subduction zones. One plate gets pushed down or is subducted by the other plate. This is a very slow process, a movement of just 1 or 2 inches per year. As subduction happens, rocks melt, become magma and move to Earth's surface and cause volcanic activity. Movements of these plates or tectonic activities make the area witness abundant earthquakes and tsunamis every year. People that are most at risk from volcanic eruptions and earthquakes live in countries that lie along the Ring of Fire. The Kamchatka Peninsula is one such region. The vast Kamchatka Peninsula is one of the most remote regions in Russia and is a sought-after tourist destination due to its lush nature. Surfing is also popular along its coast. It is home to just 300,000 people who are mostly concentrated in 3 towns in the south, including Petropavlovsk-Kamchatski. But moving around Kamchatka is difficult. The peninsula has just a few hundred miles of paved roads, mostly around towns, and there are no roads to cross the swampland separating it from the mainland. Kamchatka Peninsula is remote, but lies in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Just off the coast of the peninsula, the Pacific Plate is moving northwest at about 8 centimeters per year. There it comes in contact with another, smaller plate called the Okhotsk microplate. The Pacific Plate is oceanic, which means it has dense rocks and wants to sink beneath the less dense microplate. As the Pacific Plate sinks towards the center of the Earth, it heats up and begins to melt. The plates also get stuck as they move past each other, and the overriding plate is then dragged downwards. This friction can build up over thousands of years, but can then be suddenly released in a couple of minutes. This is known as a mega-thrust earthquake, thus Kamchatka Peninsula is prone to strong quakes.
Kamchatka Peninsula is situated in the area where 2 geological plates collide, so there are 2 oceanic crusts that are diverging at speed of 8 meters per year, as I remember. That's why it is to be expected and it is predictable that earthquakes happen in this zone of subduction, and aftershock are and will be in this region.
Actually, there are already some studies showing some preliminary results of this earthquake. It shows that this earthquake started just slightly south of the foreshock position, happened 10 days ago in on July 20th, the magnitude 7.5 foreshock. So right after that foreshock, like slightly towards south, there is epicenter or starting point of today's magnitude 8.8 earthquake. The total rupture length is on the order of like 150 to 200 kilometers. So it's a huge earthquake rupture. It's this order of rupture length is comparable to the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, but smaller, definitely smaller. But still shows that the rupture propagates from the north, from north towards south along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench.
A dormant volcano is the one that hasn't erupted recently, but is still capable of erupting in the future. Unlike extinct volcanoes, dormant volcanoes are not considered dead. So if a volcano that has been silent for years erupts again or shows activity, it is a dormant volcano. Let's take a look at some of the dormant volcanoes that have not erupted in years. Mount Kilimanjaro is a large dormant volcano in Tanzania. It is the highest mountain in Africa and the highest freestanding mountain above sea level in the world, at 19,349 feet above sea level. Kilimanjaro is composed of three distinct volcanic cones: Kibo, Mawenzi, and Shira. Kibo is the summit of the mountain and the tallest of the three volcanic formations. While Mawenzi and Shira are extinct, Kibo is considered dormant and could possibly erupt again. Scientists estimate that the last time it erupted was 360,000 years ago. Mount Fuji is Japan's tallest mountain, rising 12,388 feet. Mount Fuji has been dormant since its last eruption in 1707, but it is still classified as active by geologists. There has been volcanic activity in the vicinity of Mount Fuji for several million years. Mount Rainier, also known as Tahoma, is a large active stratovolcano in the United States. The mountain is located in Mount Rainier National Park, about 95 kilometers south-southeast of Seattle. Due to high probability of an eruption in the near future and proximity to a major urban area, Mount Rainier is considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world. A volcano erupted in southwest Iceland on the 16th of July, releasing smoke and streams of lava. This is the latest eruption in a series of volcanic events near the capital, Reykjavik. The Krasheninnikov Peninsula has been witnessing increased geological activity in recent years. Iceland's meteorological office reported that magma pushed through the Earth's crust, creating a fissure estimated to be between 700 and 1,000 meters long. The eruption began with little warning, although ground deformation had been observed prior to the event. This marks the latest eruption in a region that had been dormant for nearly 800 years until activity resumed in 2021. Since then, Iceland has seen a dozen eruptions on the Krasheninnikov Peninsula alone. Back in April, a volcano in southwestern Iceland belched lava and smoke into the air, triggering warning sirens in the town of Grindavik, where molten rock started spewing toward the community. Emergency services evacuated the nearby Blue Lagoon luxury spa, as well as inhabitants from the fishing town of Grindavik in the hours ahead of the outbreak, as experts warned the eruption was imminent.
This eruption has been, we've been waiting for it for a while. We knew that the pressure was sufficient to drive an eruption to the surface. What happened this morning was that a strong earthquake swarm started at 6:45 in the morning. And through the first few hours, it was all the magma was moving below the surface. So it was making a new dike intrusion, similar to what we saw in the very initial phase back in November 23. But then at about 9:45 in the morning here, local time, the eruption started. It's very close to Grindavik, but it's a very, it's a much smaller eruption than what we had previously.
Iceland, often called the land of fire and ice, sits atop the mid-Atlantic ridge and is home to more than 30 active volcanic systems. Many of them, like Reykjanes, were considered dormant until recently. Remember the 2010 Eyjafjallajökull eruption? This volcano in Iceland had been dormant for nearly 200 years before its eruption in March 2010, causing massive air travel disruption. It is now considered active and has the potential to erupt again. Home to more than 130 active and dormant volcanoes, this is Indonesia. On the 1st of August, Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki in the country's East Nusa Tenggara province erupted, sending a massive ash column more than 10 kilometers into the sky. The eruption is the latest in a series of volcanic events at Lewotobi in recent months. In early July, the volcano released an even higher ash plume, reaching up to 18 kilometers, disrupting flights to and from the nearby tourist destination of Bali. Lewotobi Laki-Laki is part of a twin volcano system, with Lewotobi, Perempuan, both of which were considered dormant until recent years. Their reactivation is part of a broader trend of increased volcanic activity across Indonesia. Indonesia is situated along the Pacific Ring of Fire, a highly active seismic zone with more than 120 active volcanoes. Many of these, like Mount Sinabung and Mount Merapi, have remained unstable in recent years after long periods of inactivity. Another sleeping giant is nestled in the western part of the United States, and it hasn't risen from slumber in nearly 70,000 years. This giant is called the supervolcano that lies beneath Yellowstone National Park, the wildlife and forest preserve that extends through the states of Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. The volcano is located in northwestern Wyoming, which is where the bulk of Yellowstone is contained. The group above the Yellowstone supervolcano sits on a hot spot made of molten and semi-molten rock called magma. Volcanologists who have been monitoring this activity since 1923 report that the ground rose approximately 25 centimeters or 9.8 inches between 2004 and 2009. However, in 2010, the land began to subside. So, is Yellowstone overdue for an eruption? At present, there is no sign that Yellowstone is on the verge of eruption. The U.S. Geological Survey currently lists Yellowstone's volcano alert level as normal, which is coded in the color green. However, any future eruption could have catastrophic consequences across North America and the globe. Then there's Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai. While the volcano has been relatively quiet for several years, it erupted in 2022 and became one of the largest volcanic events of the 21st century. On the 15th of January in 2022, the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano experienced an explosive eruption. On the 14th of January, the volcano started erupting. Tsunami warnings were issued, and waves of 30 centimeters were observed in Tonga's capital, Nuku'alofa. The main eruption happened the very next day, on the 15th of January. Nearly 200,000 flashes of lightning lit up the inside of the dark ash cloud for 11 hours. The U.S. space agency NASA stated that the eruption was hundreds of times more powerful than the Hiroshima atomic bomb, referring to one of the two atomic bombs dropped by the United States on Japan during World War II. Interestingly, the volcano was declared dormant just 3 days before eruption on the 11th of January that year. However, this dormancy was short-lived. The massive eruption triggered tsunamis across various countries, from Japan to the United States. According to the United States Geologic Survey, or USGS, there are approximately 1,500 potentially active volcanoes worldwide. Most are located around the Pacific Ocean in the Ring of Fire. When volcanoes erupt, they can spew hot, dangerous gases, ash, lava, and rock that can cause loss of life and property. Possible links between volcanoes and earthquakes have long fascinated experts in the field. So the question arises, are volcanoes and earthquakes interrelated? If so, can earthquakes trigger volcanic eruptions? Multiple lines of evidence from studies suggest that a connection could exist between the two geologic titans in certain situations. Both volcanoes and earthquakes occur due to the movement of the Earth's tectonic plates. They are both caused by the heat and energy released from the Earth's core. Under specific circumstances, earthquakes can trigger volcanic eruptions through severe movement of tectonic plates. Similarly, volcanoes can trigger earthquakes through the movement of magma within a volcano. A few large regional earthquakes, which are greater than magnitude 6, are considered to be related to an eruption or to some unrest at a nearby volcano. However, volcanoes can only be triggered into eruption by nearby tectonic earthquakes if they are already poised to erupt. This requires two conditions to be met: enough eruptible magma within the volcanic system, significant pressure within the magma storage region. Therefore, the aspect of how volcanoes and earthquakes are interrelated is to understand the cyclical relationship, where earthquakes cause volcanic eruptions and magma movement causes earthquakes. A new study has revealed that climate change could awaken hundreds of dormant volcanoes around the world, which could further exacerbate the effects of global warming. Hundreds of volcanoes in regions like Antarctica, Chile, and Alaska sit beneath ice. As global temperatures rise, that icy cover melts. The weight once held above these volcanoes is lost, removing the pressure and triggering explosive activity. The findings were shared at the 2025 Goldschmidt Conference in Prague on the 8th of July. The study focused on 6 volcanoes in southern Chile, where eruptions were tracked from the last ice age. But this very idea that melting glaciers influence volcanoes is not new. Since the 1970s, scientists have suggested that disappearing ice might release pressure on Earth's crust. As gases and magma expand, the chance of eruption rises. This process has already been recorded in Iceland, where glacier loss led to volcanic activity. Volcanoes do interact with the climate by discharging substances into the atmosphere during eruptions. These eruptions emit large amounts of gases, particles, also known as aerosols, ash, and metals, all of which can temporarily alter the climate at local, regional, or global levels. As climate change continues to reshape our world, it remains to be seen which dormant volcano will unleash its fury next.